What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Club Lorcana podcast, and we are back from Seattle. I just landed at about 5:30 this morning. I know you were back at around 11 last night. I'm your host, Jeremy Bertrioni. With me, as always, Syed.
Hello.
And how was it, dude? How was your trip?
It was rough. I'm still feeling right now.
Yeah. Still feeling tired or exhausted or whatever?
I'm exhausted. I can't make any decisions.
So, brain exhausted, sure, but why don't you tell them sort of, I think the main narrative about what was going on with you this weekend is you show up on Friday. I've been there for an hour. I got there an hour before you, and you're sick.
Yep, I got food poisoning.
You got food poisoning. I mean, you were in the bathroom a lot this weekend. As soon as you got off the plane, you looked at me and you were like, I should not have come to Seattle.
Yeah.
That's what you said. I was like, you can't really turn around and get back on the plane, so...
Well, I got off the plane and I ran to the bathroom, and then you saw me after
the first bathroom, right?
And I was like, "Oh, I shouldn't be here.
Shouldn't be here."
Yeah. It was so bad that Ryan walked into the bathroom and he was like, "That can't be Zan."
I hope that's not Zan, right? In the bathroom. And then, but anyway, I guess time waits for no man, so we got right into an Uber and we went to the venue and played in the Friday event.
Yeah. And I was contemplating the whole time whether I should play or not. And it was a really rough event.
Yeah. I mean, you were having a tough time. I was also having a tough time, even though I was physically healthy. I was playing green steel, and I just couldn't buy a win. I think I was totally freaking out, which is affecting my play, obviously. But I was like 0-2-4 or whatever with green steel, and I was just desperate for a way out.
Yeah. For me, I started off pretty hot, and I decided that I was gonna buy a Powerade, which was very expensive. It was the most expensive Powerade I think I've ever bought.
Shout out to Seattle for having the most expensive everything we've ever had. I mean, what a truly great city. Apparently, the average income there is $180,000 a year. It's all tech employees, and they just jack up prices to match.
Yeah, so it was like $6 Powerade.
Nice.
But I needed it at the time, or at least I thought I did. My stomach was so bad that it couldn't hold water or Powerade.
Right.
So I started off pretty good. I started off like 401, and basically I needed to win one more to lock up either first or top four.
Sure.
And yeah, basically my game against Blue Red in game 2 up a game came down to one decision, and I made the wrong one. And it was really frustrating because the Powerade that I'd gotten 2 rounds earlier started kicking in and being like, I need to get out. And I just got this crazy pain, and I just really couldn't think anymore. And so I had a 50-50 decision that if I was able to think more clearly, it was a 55-45.
Right.
And I picked the 45.
You're supposed to pick the 55. Right.
Yeah, and basically what happened was I have 6 characters on board, and 5 of which get destroyed by a Sisu. And my opponent has no cards in hand. I'm at 17 lore. And they end up hitting the Sisu after they quest with Hiram, and they needed to ink both of the cards that they drew off of it to play the Sisu.
Sure.
And it wiped my board. And then and what I had drawn for my turn was a Cricky. If I played the Cricky, then I win the game.
Oh, but if they be prepared, then playing the Cricky is horrible.
Exactly. But they had a Hiram and a Tamatoa. And so if the right answer was actually just play the Cricky, because if they drew the be prepared, then them wiping their field still puts me at an advantage.
Right. At 17, no field versus no field, they pass. You're still in a good spot.
Exactly. But I decided to play around the be prepared where I really just didn't need to. So they ended up hitting the what do you call it? Sisu into a Medusa, which ended up ending my game, and we ended up splitting. Then the next round, similar situation happened where I'm at 19, and I decided to like bounce a muse back to my hand, and I had already seen their hand, but their draw that I didn't see for the next turn ended up being aerial. They played the aerial, and I knew that they had a dime, and even though they were at 5 lore, they ended up going to 15, and they ended up gaining 15 lore in one turn.
Mm-hmm.
But I had created this plan in my mind. I'm like, I'm playing against Blue Steel, and they've already played 3 grab your swords. If I just bounce this muses back to my hand and play it, then I win. But I didn't wasn't able to digest new information because
you weren't able to digest anything.
Exactly.
No digestion happening.
So I ended up splitting a match which I 100% had all the information and should have been able to win. But when you're in pain, I was they top decked the whole New World, and then I looked at their hand and I made a plan, and the plan was disrupted by 2 back-to-back top decks.
Sure.
And I wasn't able to readjust because I just wasn't able to use my brain, which I'm usually able to use.
Usually you're using your brain, but this time you would say that you weren't using your brain.
Yep. It was bad. And I won game 1, and I had to go, and I was gone to the bathroom for 15 minutes, and I was like, are they just gonna
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Drop me from the tournament? I'm just in bad shape. But yeah, it was just one of those tournaments. And then in the final round, I ended up playing against Amber Steel, and they 2-0'd me. And so I ended up finishing 20th, where I had 2 opportunities to just win the tournament.
Win first. I mean, was it 300 tickets at the time too? First is 300? Oh my gosh.
So instead I ended up walking away with 75, which I'm okay with.
75 tickets is not bad.
It's not bad, and I was in that good of a position, but it really hurt me because I'm if I'm in normal shape, I wouldn't make these mistakes. But yeah, it was a really frustrating time, and I was not frustrated at anybody but myself. You know?
A lot of the times we like to start with a snapshot of the metagame. I think this time, since we just had the big DLC, that people at home can just go to inkdex.com, click tournaments, click the DLC, see what's doing well. It's a lot of green steel, a lot of red purple. Red purple did pretty good this past weekend.
Yeah, so I mean, green steel beat my expectations. It ended up being at 18%, and I said that the max was going to be 15.
Yeah, I put mine at 22, so I went over.
I was also off.
Price is Right rules, I was off. Yeah.
21% was blue-red, which was as expected.
It's almost exactly what we said. Yep.
Gonna be the most played deck, and then I think red purple was third.
I think so, and almost anecdotally it had to be because it was everywhere on the tables.
Amber Steel was fourth.
Pretty much what we said. I think the next one was probably green purple.
Yeah, then I think it was green purple, and I think it was blue steel after that.
I think only one green purple made the top 64. The list was crazy.
Not surprising, but if it does make it to top 64, it's likely to have a good time because there was a decent amount of red purple. That's exactly not true. I mean, I think green steel was just best deck. So
green steel was the best deck. It won the event, piloted by Luke Goodson.
Yep, also known as Wonderland.
And do we want to talk about? I mean, Labyrinth sort of was. It kind of came out as now that we're done with all the DLCs. Labyrinth was sort of the premier pro team of Lorcana.
Sure, I mean, yeah, I mean they were, but yeah,
they almost have a record as good as you. They got 2 Mickeys. They have a couple of different day 2s.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I don't know. I think it's cool that Lorcana has teams, and I definitely think they have a claim to being the best one right now.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's just, would I join a team? Probably not.
They're a little bit in their infancy stage, I think, for you.
Yeah, it's not. It's not even that. It's more so, whatever path I choose in Lorcana, I want it to be supported by Disney and Ravensburger. You know,
Makes total sense.
and so right now they haven't created an atmosphere for teams just yet, and so kind of hesitant on that path. You know.
I think the way you're doing it's pretty wise. I think, since you're sitting at number 1 in the leaderboard, any team role that you add, you're giving a lot of value to them. So you can just hold off until it's the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, this past weekend, I gave my list to Kendall, Lorcana Bro, which is Labyrinth. So, of course, Labyrinth had access to it.
Great.
So, but yeah, Continentals is coming up and it's going to be much more interesting, right? I think that a new set's going to be coming out. So
set 6. Hey, stay tuned later this week. We're going to do a spoiler episode for set 6.
Yeah. So it's a bit weird, and I feel like I have to be a little bit honest here and blunt, and that's going to be, I'm going to have to do something that I'm generally not a fan of, which is keep information to myself for a bit.
For Continentals, it makes total sense.
Yeah, and the reason why is because usually when you're playing against an open field, I'm down to give information to other people who are putting in as much time as me, or anybody who's listening to the channel,
right,
or part of Club Lorcana. Like anybody who comes and talks to me, I'm pretty much an open book majority of the time.
Right.
But when you get to a smaller field of 128 people, the people that you're generally helping directly impact your result.
Sure.
And so historically, there are deck builders and then there are players.
Right.
And then what's more rare is having a deck builder and a player who's like just as good as like deck building as they are at playing the game.
Sure.
And so like you kind of have to be more cautious about where you put the information, right? Because it can come back to bite you really hard. Because a good player playing against you, even like it's not like just because you built the deck that you can just counter it mid tournament. You know?
Yeah.
You introduce, like, let's say you have the best deck in the tournament, but you shared it with someone else who's playing in the tournament. All of a sudden, let's say you have a 75% chance against every single other person.
Except for that guy.
Except for that guy, because they're playing your deck.
Right.
Then you all of a sudden end up in a 50-50 situation.
Unless you have a secret door built into the matchup that you know that they don't, that you can win.
I know, but creating a secret door to to your own deck where the deck has not been shared before
takes a while.
It's like it's not really possible
to
do that. Speaking of playing the mirror match, I had a pretty rough DLC experience.
Let's talk about the main event.
Yeah, main event was rough. But I mean, PPG, Ravensburger, the judge staff, absolutely amazing at like just helping players be able to play their best.
They gave Zan the designated seat. It was right next to the bathroom, so he could duck out. They said he could have basically as many breaks as he needed, although I don't think he took that many breaks.
I took 0 breaks.
Great, no breaks, but he could have taken breaks.
Yeah, I mean, if the pain got bad, they were like, hey, we'd be willing to help give you time, to like get through the pain and then play the match normally. I ended up taking 0 breaks, and basically I decided to fast majority of the tournament because I wasn't sure how anything was going to react, including water. I didn't drink water either. At a certain point after our lunch break, I decided to we had gotten some broth.
Yep.
So I had some beef broth and ended up just drinking Gatorade. But besides for the first 3 rounds, I was just in that mode. And I had like a okay start. I started off 202.
Two's great.
I mean, no, 102.
Ah, a little worse.
102 because the first 3 rounds, and so wasn't happy about my start. And then immediately when we got back, I got 2-0'd by I got another 2-0, so I was 202, and then I played against the mirror match, and opponents immediately like, I watch your videos,
Love you.
love you. I wouldn't have learned how to play this deck without you, and then proceeded to just absolutely have the god hands and just 2-0'd me. And yeah, it was rough. I was like, okay, if I lose one more game, I'm out of the tournament.
Out of the tournament.
And so one thing that we wanted to talk about was like the way that you would approach this spot, which a lot of players do in these DLCs, which is the best of one.
So for those of you that don't know, DLCs are best of two formats. Meaning you play 2 games, yada, yada. You need like a record of 504 or like better to guarantee. So if you're, for example, in a spot where you're like 104, or in his case, X1 and 3, from now on, if any player loses a game, they're out of day 2. So you're incentivized to agree with your opponent that you're going to just play a best of 1 match. Meaning that whoever wins the first game, the loser concedes to them, because you wouldn't want to deny them an opportunity to day 2 with no potential gain for yourself.
Exactly.
I have never had a single issue persuading anybody to agree to that. And I feel like you're in the exact opposite camp, where I think maybe 0% of your opponents ever do. Some of them do, but like a lot of your opponents are like, no, I'm playing. We're playing.
Yeah, I mean, I've had both sides, but majority of them have accepted that they would get the benefit of me conceding, but wouldn't concede if they lost.
So my first,
but they didn't also let me know.
So I was 003.
Yeah.
Then I win. I'm 1-0-3. Then I split again. I'm 1-0-4.
Yeah.
Brutal. So then I'm in best of 1 matches.
Yeah.
I sit down across from my opponent. It's a guy that was on my plane from Dallas to Seattle, and he just goes, "So best of 1, right?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." That's it all.
No, mine is like a giant speech, and I cannot have. There's no expectation for them to give me an answer, right? Because the verbiage has to be a specific type of way that it doesn't benefit me, to like take away the day 2 opportunity from you. So if I lose game 1, I will give you the win and go about my day. And so I do that whole speech. My opponent's like, "Yeah, I understand." And then we play. I win game 1. And I'm like, "Are we playing game 2?" And they're like, "Yes."
Of course.
So I had to win the old-fashioned way. Win that one. Go to the next round. Give the speech. My opponent's like, "Yes, I understand." I win game 1. I win game 1. I'm like, "Are we playing game 2?" My opponent goes, "Yeah, we're playing game 2."
You know, I honestly can't believe it. I can't believe it. All of my rounds when I'm in the best 1 bracket, I'm like, "Best 1?" And they're like, "Yeah." And then I'll win, and they're like, "Good game," or I'll lose, and I'm like, "Hey man, good games, congrats, best of luck going forward." I scooped the best of 1, of course.
Yeah.
None of my opponent, you'll never hear a story of me being like,
I mean, I guess
points?
the problem with my situation is I've never lost the best of 1 yet. So
I feel like I lose the best ones a lot.
But I've only had to do it twice. Well, I tried to do it. I would consider these best of 1s because my opponent would have gotten the win if I lost.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I would have given it to them. Then we go on to the next. This is the 3rd time doing it. And at this point, I'm like, should I even
should I even try this?
Should I even try? And before I'm like, okay, I have a spiel, and my opponent just stops me. Like, I know exactly what you're gonna say. You don't have to say anything.
Because it's a best of 1?
Yes.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. And yeah, so I didn't even have to say the speech. we just played and I won.
That's how all my rounds go, by the way. I'm literally just like, and they're like, and we start playing. It doesn't take no coercion. Everyone knows exactly what's going on. I don't necessarily. I think that so many people are talking about best of two that we don't have to go into it. But if this aspect of a tournament sounds a little bit disgusting to you, it's like one of the side effects of holding best of two events. They have so many side effects that are so brutal, and like they don't feel good. You know, one of the things about a best of two is if the players go 1-1 split, both players feel awful. So they managed to create a tournament format where like both players can feel really bad after a match.
Yep.
So that's not good. You know, like that's like not what we want to do.
It didn't feel great, but I will say there are some good advantages for a lot of the players who are playing it for the first time. But by the last one, when people raised their hands, majority of players, it felt like had played them before.
Everyone was like, okay, this is,
But let's talk about some benefits. Benefits are virtually like, let's say, somewhere around 10% of the field would go to time.
Sure.
In the tournament at some point it's probably higher than that when you're playing best of 3, 50 minutes. With 45 minutes best of 2, virtually like nobody was going to time.
It's like 4 or 5 tables every time. And then you go look and it's always like red purple mirrors or red purple versus red blue. And you're like, interesting. Yeah. Interesting that you guys are taking so long doing this, especially when it's red purple versus red blue, because I get those wrapped up.
Dang.
Those go fast for me.
Yeah.
Let
me finish because I'm like about to get to the point at which I'm
the end of your day, right? Your last guy agrees to a best of one. So you were
it wasn't my last guy. This was the
second to last guy.
Second to last guy, yes.
Right. So you were, let's just review the records one more time. You were like 102.
102. Then I was 202.
Right.
Then I got 2-0'd.
Then you were 2-1-2. So at that point, when you're 2-1-2,
if I lose one game, I cannot make day 2.
Wait, I think X1-3 still makes it. So
X1-3.
So I think you have one game to give in 4 rounds.
No, it doesn't. That would put me at 44.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You have no games left to give in 4 rounds. You got 2-0-2-0-2-0.
I have to 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0. It's like what the hell? Like,
and so you get through 3 of them. Yes. 2 of them are legitimate best of 2s that you have to 2-0-2-0.
Yeah, where it was worse than best of 2. If I lose game 1, I lose.
It's like a best of 2 for only you.
Yes,
and then your opponent's good.
Yep, exactly.
Nice. Wow,
it was it was scary. I was sweating the whole time.
So your second to last guy just gives it to you, and then now
second last guy doesn't just give it to me. I have to still win the game.
You win a best of 1 to get second to last.
Yeah, thank God. But now here becomes the complicated part, right? So now I'm sitting at 41 points.
Okay.
Right? So if I split, then I will be at 44 points.
Which has only ever made it in Toronto. Definitely not going to make it.
100% not going to make it, but I would finish 128.
Which will get you a Let It Go promo.
Exactly. So I did not offer the best of 1. The reason why was because instead of having 2 possibilities of either I make day 2 or I make, or I don't make anything.
20 tickets. That's
20 tickets, right? I wanted there to be 3 possibilities where if I split, I at least get the Let It Go. If I lose, then I get nothing. And then if I win, then I get to make day 2.
Sure.
So I did not ask the last round for a best of 2.
Okay.
And I ended up playing against a really good player who was an ex-pro Hearthstone player, who I had a lot of mutual friends with, like Luna, like the Rat, which was cool, but also kind of scary.
They were on blue-red, right?
They were on blue-red. But then they ended up getting probably the worst hands I've ever seen in my life.
We take those.
And I just won the next 2 rounds, and I legitimately couldn't believe it.
I came up to you at the end of the day, and you were like, I guess I day 2'd. We were both kind of in the dumps at one point or the day. We were like, man, we just didn't make it this time. And then you were like, I guess I day 2'd. And I was like, oh. I got like the amount of points required to get the most tickets is like what I queued for. I was like, ugh, I like barely saved that day. But my tournament was a disaster. I like fully lost faith in the deck. And then I heard that you were talking with Ed about red blue. I was like, oh my God, that's got to be my answer. I got to play red blue. So I like panic. I talked to Chris Anderson. He gasses me up about red blue. And I end up registering a Thang crossbow for the DLC. And it went like okay. Like I said, I was 0-3 for a little while. I was upset. And then I won one. I was like, oh, maybe I can bring it back. And then I got into the best of one bracket, and I lost my first best of one to the mirror. He won the die roll. And I was like, kind of punted this one away. But, live and learn. You can't just panic and switch decks at the last minute. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really tough tournament. I mean, if I had to do it all over again, I think it might have been wise for me to play blue-red.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not for the reasons that you would think are the reasons. It's not the reasons for that actually are the same for everybody else. It's the reason that every person I sit across from already knows exactly what I'm playing.
It's mulliganing. They're mulliganing for green steel.
And so it makes my tournament very difficult. This was the hardest tournament where I also wasn't in the best shape in terms of my physical health.
And everyone knows what you're playing.
And everyone knows what I'm playing.
In fact, funny story about that. In between rounds, you were playing for fun against a blue-red player.
Yep.
I think it was Jonathan Williams.
Yeah, it was.
You're playing for fun against Jonathan Williams, and you borrowed my blue-red deck.
Yep.
And some people like walked by and saw it. And then one guy tweeted like, oh, it breaks my heart that Syed's on blue-red.
I was just playing it for fun.
When you were like playing it for fun in the middle of the tournament. And then I'm playing like maybe 300 tables down, like the next round. And somebody walks up to somebody else and is like, hey, did you hear Syed's actually playing blue-red for this event? And the other guy was like, really? And the guy was like, yeah, I saw it on Twitter. I was like, I think everybody's a little too online right now. You know what I mean? Like everyone needs to log off of Twitter because y'all are getting crazy off of like literally like the lunch break games you were playing with Mr. Williams.
They tagged me, so I was like, should I reply right now? And then I decided, no, I'm just gonna reply to this after. Maybe I can gain some equity because
some people think you're on blue-red. Yeah, if you'd have been on blue-red this tournament, it would have been pretty easy because people have been like keeping all their brawls, keeping all the things that kill Diablo. They're like, my hand is perfectly good at killing Diablo. And you're just like, all right, I'll link a Tipo, play a popsicle, draw a card. And they're just like, oh my God, you win automatically. That's interesting. I switched to red-blue. It's like fine. Honestly, I played the mirror a lot. And I had trouble getting the 2-0. I split against the mirror almost every round. My 2-0s that I got all were when I played against green steel, which was good. It's what I thought I could do with the deck. I don't even necessarily think it's a great matchup for red blue. I just think that I like really know how to play it and really value the right things and get a bunch of cards in my hand and a bunch of guys on board and that's like good.
Yeah, that is interesting. Something that you didn't get to see, but I like really experienced. Was a lot of people came up to me and were like, how could you let Jeremy play blue-red?
How could you do this to me? No, I take full responsibility for that one. I lost my mind that day.
And I want to give some insight into that. Friday, we're at the hotel and Jeremy's like, I'm playing blue-red. Zan, you're going to be mad at me, blah, blah, blah. And I just looked at him. I'm like, hey, dude, at this point, I have no energy.
Yeah.
To try and persuade you otherwise. Right now, I just want to be supportive of whatever you want to play and whatever makes you feel good. And so that was the exact conversation that I had with Jeremy the Friday before the tournament, right? Because I think that players approach these tournaments in various different ways. And I think that there's a limit to how much you can say like, hey, this is what I believe. But at the end of the day, they're going to believe what they want to believe. And some players also care about like feeling good going into a tournament. My deck is cracked, right? I have the best blue-red list or another deck, whatever that deck may be. And I think that's also important. If the day before you spend too much time in that contemplation mode, you won't have enough energy or decision making power the day of the tournament.
Sure.
So I didn't like. Now you know my thought process.
No, I mean, it's totally fine. It's totally on me. I just wasn't feeling good about green steel. I feel like if I don't feel good about a deck, I don't do great with it. I really felt like I was punting away matches in ways that I couldn't even like see really when I was playing green steel, and so I was just like, I gotta find something else. And
yeah. What was the most interesting part about that when you were making that decision was when Fiona called you,
mm-hmm.
and Jeremy had consciously made like what fail safes. Right, and Fiona, his partner, was one of them.
Yeah.
Fiona calls and like, so Jeremy, you're switching decks?
It's my girlfriend. She calls me and I'm like, I'm playing red blue tomorrow. She's like, no. I'm like, trust me, it's gonna be good. You know, like so. I set up the failsafe. It worked good, but it didn't.
Yeah,
it didn't work.
I even was like, yeah, he's changing decks because I was like, if I can't get through to him, maybe Fiona can.
I honestly, so let's talk about it. What ended up happening is on Sunday I was like in a dark cloud, right? I missed my opportunity at the DLC, so I just registered Kendall's red purple deck.
Yeah.
I tie for first in the tournament. I'm 5-0-3 in the 8 a.m. I feel like great about that deck. By the way, I think Kendall's version, the Maui 2 or whatever, is like really good.
So what did you play against?
It was just a lot of aggro decks, but I played against a lot of blue-red decks, and I buried them.
Yeah, so, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. If you think about what's going to be in the Sunday tournament, when on Saturday, the most popular deck was blue-red, and it didn't convert as well as it should have.
Right.
Then what's going to be the most popular deck when 1,800 players.
But I kind of played blue-red all day, both days anyway. So maybe there's an argument for, like, I could have played the Maui. Right now I'm sort of still trying to figure out, like, how I could have known. You know what I mean? I did have, like, an interesting feel. You know who was trying to get me to play red-purple the whole day was Sammy. Who's just a guy we know from DLCs. I played him in Houston back in the SCG days. Or Dallas back in the SCG days. He's a Tron player. And he was just like, I feel like if you played red-purple, you're going to win the tournament. And, like, I should have listened to that guy. I might have won that tournament.
No, not sure. I mean, green. You would have had to gone through green steel and
but Finders Keepers beats green steel as long as they don't have to go.
Not true. I mean, Kendall did make top 64 and was on the play against green steel and got 2-0'd.
Yeah, but Kendall's he didn't.
I mean, I lost to red purple, and I do think that red purple was a solid deck. Out of the 3 decks that you could have played, I do think that Kendall's version of red purple would have been a better choice.
Yeah.
But the narrative going into the tournament was Ed's red purple list.
Right, and that wouldn't have been good.
Because Kendall was in that headspace too.
Mm-hmm.
So like Kendall's list wasn't an option going into Saturday.
No, it wasn't. Theoretically, it could be if I subscribed to his Patreon, because Patreon people had it.
Yes, that is true. But you did not.
No, a point of pride is that I'm not going to subscribe to Kendall's Patreon. You should do it. If you're listening to the podcast and you're curious about Rebel, you should do it. I'm not going to do it. I don't care. I'll lose.
I mean, Kendall came over here and we were testing with him, but he didn't have that list at the time.
But he was working on it. He was getting there because he was like, I want to cut some of the 1-drops. I want to cut these things, take the crabs out. And that's like where he ended up. He ended up playing 6 1-drops. He kept Flynn Sisu, which I think is what turned me onto the deck. Because when they cut that, I was like, be honest, guys, this deck sucks now. Because Flynn Sisu is like max pain against red-blue. They're just in such a hole. If your Flynn triggers twice, you just win. Because you can burn them out from that point. So Flynn Sisu is really important to that deck. So when I saw the list, it had Flynn Sisu, it had Finders Keepers, but only 2. I'm like, okay, maybe not so bad if you're playing 2 of them. And I just played that one, and it was good. I think that probably would have been the best. I'll be honest. I feel like I'm the best with red purple right now in terms of how I play, just because I like always know 100% of what's going on in the games.
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, I'm not that pressed about it. I did get got the big dub on Sunday. That kind of saved my weekend a little bit, made me feel a little better.
Yeah. I mean, I think that maybe you should just be a red purple guy.
We've been tossing that back and forth. Where I think like people watching our podcast can connect the dots, right? There's a moment where you say like in Lorcana, it's so much harder than all these other ones that specializing in decks happens a lot more. For instance, in other card games like Magic, I could play whatever deck. I could play Soul Sisters into Burn.
Yeah, that's a major conversation that we had, which was
That's what I'm saying.
we used to. I mean, so 2019, Jeremy and I are playing professional Magic, and when we're playing professional Magic, we're both playing the exact same 60, 75 because there's a sideboard every single tournament, right? In that second season, Jeremy finished first and I finished second.
Yeah.
For the year, I ended up finishing player of the year. The reason why that happened was we were so connected on like what deck we were going to play. And that was kind of the deal. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm going to just keep building the most broken deck that this game has ever seen. And if you trust me and you just play it well, then we'll be able to do it. Something else that happens in Lorcana is when you're playing red purple, right? Your weaknesses are different than other decks' weaknesses, right? So like red purple is going to have beefy bodies and have rush and are going to be able to deal with locations.
Good cards.
Right? Those are cards that line up well against certain things. But what is it not going to be able to do? Deal with items.
Nope.
It's not going to be able to deal with like the crazy Diablo start or the crazy Beast start without like giving them value.
Yeah, they're going to get some cards off the Cove Diablo or the turn 3 Beast.
Exactly. So when a deck is busted, it is not going to be able to like exactly deal with it right away. Mm-hmm. And it can lose games to that. So now when a red purple player decides to change decks, like for example, when they change from red purple to green steel, all of their strengths now become their weaknesses.
My guys are too little.
Exactly. So it becomes very difficult for a red purple player to be able to play green steel because it's not what they're used to. They're like, oh, all my strengths used to be this and now they're my weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And that's why a player that can play both decks is someone that you should be watching out for. You should be like, oh my God, this player can play both decks.
Like Ed.
Right? More like me.
No, well, but you're on the podcast. Yeah, obviously like you. You're like, well, you play every deck.
Well, Ed's still working towards it, right? Right now we know that Ed hasn't top 64 with green steel.
Oh, with green steel. Yeah, you're right.
But I top 64'd Toronto with red purple.
Okay, you got it. Red purple. Red purple. Red purple would have been fun this weekend, man. I would have had 3 threes for 2. That just solves so many of my problems. There's like so much stuff that can. I quest that snake on 3. I always feel like such a G. They have like a bunch of guys. I'm like, all right, quest for my snake. And in my head, I'm like, what are you gonna do about that, man?
So the thing that I wanted to talk about in this is if you really want to test yourself and see how good of a Lorcana player you can be, you should be testing yourself by playing both of those decks. So let's say you go to your set championships, right? You end up doing well with green steel, and in the next tournament you end up playing red purple, and you end up doing bad. That's exactly where your weaknesses lie, and that's exactly what you should continue to play, because the deck's not bad. You just are playing it probably in a way that is not like correct for that deck, right? And so in between rounds, what am I doing? I'm playing blue-red. What is the only deck, like tier 1 deck that I have not played in DLCs? It's blue-red.
Right.
Or blue-steel, right? But like I haven't played it in a DLC.
Blue-steel's not really tier 1 though.
But it's not really tier 1 either. I mean, I was pretty impressed with Moyen's version, but still, if I could go back in time, I still like, and if I'm just like a like an unknown person and I in this tournament is like someone wouldn't know exactly what I'm playing, green steel was 100% without a doubt the best choice for this tournament. It has the most broken start, and if you are running good, you have the best chance at winning the tournament, right? The way I felt about going into this tournament, but I didn't want to verbalize it too much because I didn't want there to be freaking 30-40% green steel at this tournament.
It was like green steel was the best deck.
Yeah, I was like, I'm probably not gonna win this tournament again, but someone else that's playing the person who's playing green steel and is closest to my list is probably going to win the tournament.
Dang, I'm glad you didn't verbalize that because that's what happened. You could have been a called shot guy.
Yeah, but at the same time, I just like I also don't want to push people who are ill prepared with green steel to switch because that like in this game,
it's everything. It's like so hard for me to play green steel, and I'm like the best card game player I know. I just can't believe it. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe it.
When I met Jeremy, he played a deck in Magic that's called Jund, and it was definitely on the weaker end of its like lifespan.
Yeah.
And a primary aspect of that deck was discard.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is surprising to me. But the thing is that deck still had beefy bodies. Like the bodies were more similar to red purple, but it had a discard element to it. So I get it. You know, with me, I've played with cards called Lingering Souls, which were like derpy characters.
You get a bunch of 1/1s.
So I know how to get value out of cards that shouldn't get any value.
Let's talk about, do you got any, you know, we're about to wrap up soon. Do you have any good stories from Seattle? Like, just like fun story. People love travel stories.
Travel stories. You start us off.
All right, I'll start off. So I want to talk about my airport trip over there.
Yeah.
Obviously the itinerary from hell, right? I leave.
Oh my gosh.
I leave Thursday night. I'm getting there Friday morning at like 9. So the first thing I do, I go to Atlanta. I fly to Dallas.
Yep.
I get to Dallas and it's like midnight or whatever, and the whole airport's like empty. And you know how an empty airport's so creepy. There's like the occasional people cleaning up and like some people sleeping or whatever. Whatever, no big deal. I get to my gate. I pull two like armchairs that basically look like this, like together in like a pod, and I get in it, and I'm actually pretty cozy. And so I fall asleep. I wake up about 6.5 hours later, and I look out at my gate, and my gate is divided into 2 sections. There's regular people, of which there's about like 10, and then there's like 30 Lorcana players that are just talking about Lorcana, what deck they're going to play in Seattle. Mm-hmm. So I look at my gate, I'm like, oh, this is sweet. I go, I brush my teeth or whatever, they go out, just start like hanging out with the Lorcana guys. And they're fun, you know, they're talking about what decks they're playing. There's a bunch of green, purple guys, a bunch of blue, red guys. You know, I get in the plane, and the guy next to me is just like, he shuffles up his deck. He's playing blue-red. He'll put it down. He draws 7 cards, and he just looks at me, and he goes, I mean, that's just game. He just loves his deck, which is awesome. It's like kind of funny because it's not what I would ever do on a plane, but it is still pretty awesome. Like, he's just like, how do you beat this? And to that guy's credit, I saw him in the top 32.
Oh, he made top 32.
He made top 32.
Awesome.
My next to the plane guy on blue red who just loves his deck.
Yeah.
Apparently he's a former Yu-Gi-Oh player. So that part of the trip wasn't so bad. And then obviously like getting there, but getting back was like also really bad. So I flew out on Monday at like 2 to Vegas. I had a 4-hour layover in Vegas, which I really don't recommend. The Las Vegas airport kind of stinks in terms of like there's a bunch of casino stuff everywhere, and like there's not really any place to sit. It's really crowded all the time.
Unless you're spending money at a slot machine.
Unless you're spending money at a slot machine, there's nowhere to sit. So I didn't like that 4-hour layover. And then it was a long ride home where we were all packed in so tight. So I had a tough airport time, but the cool thing was waking up, looking at the gate, and it's like a plane full of Lorcana players, and we just get to talk and have fun. So that's my good, fun travel story.
Nice.
About like how I got there. I don't really know if I have anything like about the dinners and stuff. It was cool meeting Michael Majors again, just because I have a lot of friends that know him. Apparently, they're like, "You got to meet Michael Majors," and then we like sort of like didn't hit it off, and I was like, "Well, better luck next time." And he was like, "Yeah, we'll try again later," and we just decided to do it again some other time.
Well, I mean, I guess you were pressing buttons on the Nadu thing, but
I was not though. Somebody else was. And I started riffing with them.
Oh.
They're like, this is Michael Majors. You know, like he made Naru, and I was like, oh, you should have taken a Tylenol.
By the way,
instead,
Nadu
buddy.
is like basically like creating Bucky.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Naru is a bad It's a magic card that broke the game. You know, I guess it happens if you make card games. Sometimes you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you break the game. Whatever, it can happen. So I was riffing along with that, but I just I don't know if he loved the way I played. But we'll try again later. I mean, it's not the end of the road. We don't hate each other. We're like laughed. We even laughed together privately about how like it's not really working.
Cool.
Big props, dude. Everybody came up, shouted out the podcast. They seem to really like it.
Yeah, they like this blank wall.
They don't like the blank wall. They think the blank wall's bad. They think that we should zoom in the camera, that we should do all these things on production, but I guess they understand that that's going to happen in a month or whatever. They don't like the blank wall.
Yeah, after when we move, we'll get a new blank wall.
No, we'll get a wall and we'll put a picture on it of us. It'll be the picture you see right now, viewer. It's just this. We screenshot this and put that picture up on the new one.
Yep.
So it's like they still get to see the blank wall from before.
Yep. Oh, the other thing I wanted to just say was how I finished the tournament, obviously. So first round of top 64, I played against this awesome purple steel deck. It's similar to what Forbidden Mountain played in Vegas.
Okay.
In my testing, I played that deck a lot, like my own version of it. I really enjoyed it. But I didn't feel like it had a great matchup against steel decks, so I dropped it. And then when I got paired against it in the first round of top 64, we built it and then we tested against it. I never lost a game in testing against it.
Nice.
And then when we're playing in the actual tournament,
you lost game 2.
I lost game 2, and I basically had the worst draws I had in all of the testing games I had. Basically, the most important card is the 1-drop Diablo. You don't even need to shift. You just need the 1/2 body because you're playing against
Maleficent. 1 mana, 1/1 quest for 2.
Exactly, and that's like their most aggro draw, and you gotta try to stop that. So luckily, I was on the play and I was able to squeeze it out, but it really did come down to the wire.
How hard is it to beat Sticky Mouse? 1 mana, 1/2 resist 1 Mickey Mouse.
I mean, that card is difficult when your draw is bad.
We call it Sticky Mouse, folks. That's its nickname.
Yeah, because I mean, 2 damage doesn't take care of it.
It sticks.
But it gets bounced by the muses all the same. So
shout out to the Yellow Steel Locations deck. 28 locations, 8 Fix-It Felixes, which do something about locations.
Draw a card if there's a location in play.
That's the good one. And then there's a 5 mana one that just gives locations 2 more health.
Yep.
And then also you play John Silver, gets resist for every location you control, and also gets 1 extra quest.
That was a cool deck. How did it finish?
I think top 32.
Same as me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it actually did 3 or 4 more places better than you.
Top 32 is top 32.
On tie breaks, it's better than you.
Did it get more prizes than me?
No.
Or did they get more than me?
Definitely people talking about their deck because it's so fun.
Yeah. I mean, that deck is the most fun deck. It definitely gets the spiciness meter.
Spiciness deck award goes to Yellow Steel Locations. Look it up on Ink Deck.
I love it.
I hope that creator knows that we thought that was awesome.
I can't wait to try it.
I'll be honest, if you were paired against that, our testing the night before would have been crazy. We would have been panicking.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would be like mulliganing for the 1 cricky.
We would have been panicking if that was what you were playing against.
That would have been the unluckiest matchup of all time.
Yeah. So, hey, if you want to beat Green Steel, try it out with the locations. But that's all for me. I think that's all my funny stories from Seattle. Obviously, Nathan stole my jacket day 2. He wore my jacket.
Yeah, Jeremy has this cool leather jacket. Every time he's wearing it, everybody's like, "You're so cool."
Yeah.
And so Nathan wore it the next day, and basically everybody was like, Nathan's so cool, and Jeremy was like, I want to wear it.
I wasn't like, I want to wear it. I was like, take that off. It's mine. You can't swagger jack. No swagger jacking at the tournaments.
I mean, I don't know. I think that sometimes you can help a friend out with it's handing him some cool.
I didn't hand it to him. He put it on. I left the hotel early to play in the 8 a.m. He's playing in the 9 a.m. He showed up to the event with my clothes on.
It's true. It's cool.
It's not cool to take your friend's clothes.
The funny thing is Jeremy wears 2 watches, so Nathan got 1 watch and
I don't always wear 2 watches. I just always have 2 Casio, the $20 Walmart watch from
Love
Casio, and I had another one on me in my pocket, so he got to also wear my watch.
Perfect.
It's kind of perfect. This watch plays a prominent role in the Netflix show Chaos, which I've been watching.
Oh, nice.
Except they got the golden one. It's Zeus's watch.
Oh my god.
He's got the gold Casio, and I'm like, ooh.
Oh, don't you get that at like Hot Topic?
You can get it at Zoomies for $70.
Yeah.
I always pointed out when we're in Zoomies, I'm like, there's the gold watch. That's my watch, but gold.
Oh my god.
And it's in a TV show now.
Wow. Okay. Gold one. If I were to get one of those, I'd probably get a silver one.
You can't get one of these in silver.
Yeah, you can.
Oh my god. We gotta wrap this podcast up, I think.
All right. This is the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to follow Jeremy, where can they find you?
You can find me at Jeremy Bertariani on Instagram. That's going to be my comedy one. My goal for the off season of Lorcana is going to be to kind of flesh out that Instagram. And you can find me on Twitter at MoxJeremy. And what about you? Where can they find you?
You're already here. So thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.